what Mr. Sharp one time called nonviolence as a method of warfare. And they are going in every place since the end of the Cold War to destabilize regimes which offer resistance to this larger agenda, the globalization agenda as Washington defines it.
Are all these revolutions actually initiated by the Americans? We can look back at what happened during the Orange Revolution in Ukraine for evidence. One has to acknowledge that the events that took place in Kiev in 2005 appear to endorse this assumption. Traditionally, Ukraine was part of Russia, but by the end of 2004 the tide turned. The United States pumped millions of dollars into the country's opposition movements in favor of regime change. We are meeting with two former leaders of the Ukraine Revolution. Just by being a member of the opposition movement PORA, they received significant sums of money, together with training in civil disobedience. Finally, they were given the book. Oh yes, the book by Gene Sharp. We all used it, and it connected us with everybody, with Optor in Serbia, the opposition movement in Belarus, and Kamara in Georgia. It was in November 2004 when hundreds of thousands of people flooded Independence Square in Kiev and demanded Viktor Yushchenko for their president. At the end of the revolution, the crowd got what they demanded. Yushchenko became president due to the massive support he received from the Western world.
We had a number of great examples of dramatizing as well as having fun on the streets.
The revolution is a happening, a celebration. This is the spirit of Gene Sharp. Every movement becomes a brand with its own symbolism. Oranges in Ukraine, the Rose Revolution in Georgia, the Tulip Revolution in Kyrgyzstan, the Denim Revolution in Belarus, all different symbols but the same concept and the same sponsor, the United States of America.
In my case, in 2004 I was heading a voter education campaign with a budget of $1 million.
$1 million?
Yes.
Yes.
But not because American taxpayers wanted to protest Yanukovych, but because Yanukovych tried to steal the vote. The United States and the European Union and others, they are serious about democracy.
After the revolution in Ukraine, Dmitry Potichin made a career from being a former activist. He works now as well as a revolution trainer. From his flat he instructs the opposition movements in Iran, Russia, Belarus and Egypt. Via Skype he is able to stay in touch with all his clients.
In principle, it's possible to trace it, but it will need much more human resources and time for every single connection.
An activist of the opposition movement in Belarus is online. Dmitro is planning a workshop over there, which is not without difficulties, as he is labeled persona non grata by the Belarus government.
I got feeling that actually it's like concentration of a number of conflicts which cannot be resolved without mobilization. And it looks like it can happen the way it happened in Egypt. Some smaller country like Belarus, for instance, or Ukraine, and then we can get Russia.
Back in Belgrade, Optor trainer Ivan Marvic proudly presents his new gadget for resistance training. It's a computer game that simulates the fight against the power of state. Ivan is sure that the game will make his training much more effective. Sponsorship for the development of the game came from American organizations.
The game downloaded off the internet or smuggled on a CD can reach people that we personally cannot, and so that obstacle is removed. Another thing is the question of scale. You know, personally, I can meet maybe up to 150 people a year if I work full time. The game can actually reach much bigger number of people.
The tactics that
mass protests, occupying buildings, blocking the whole city, But you're trying to kind of galvanize, like rock concerts to come, and then you use that opportunity to recruit, etc., etc.
Marovich declares the new generation doesn't want to read books. They would prefer to play video games, and it's far more effective.
Just now they're kicking our ass. I mean, really. So we're actually losing big time here. I mean, people are leaving and going, joining the regime. Evilness of the regime depends on the artificial intelligence, how the computer actually runs the regime. And that varies from scenario to scenario. If the player wants to play an easy scenario, I recommend fight against corruption. If he wants to play a very difficult scenario, I recommend fight against dictatorship or fight against occupation.
Despite the internet, the revolution trainers spend most of their time traveling to countries in need of a well-organized resistance. Just in the past year, Serda Popovic alone flew over 100,000 miles. His inside knowledge and experience is his capital.
One of the tricks is making everybody busy. Okay. Because when people are busy, they don't have time to be afraid. Sounds crazy, but this is exactly what they do in the military training. Okay. So the way you're doing with nonviolent struggle is actually you create this group identity. You want people to feel each other. You want people to be dressed in a similar clothes. You want people to sing because songs make them work together. You won't have drums there who will give the rhythm to your march. You want whistles, you want music, you want fun. This is a very important part. And now it looks like a big, how do you call it, love parade.
The Egyptians followed Serda's rules exactly and succeeded. The whole world was watching as the people celebrated on Tahrir Square. The regime was powerless. If it had reacted with violence, it would have lost its face in front of the whole international media.
The events in North Africa and the Middle East, from Bahrain, from Yemen and so forth, it goes back actually to 2003 and the time right after the U.S. occupation of Iraq, when George Bush at the G8 summit of 2004, June, announced a greater Middle East project, that Washington's goal was to turn the Middle East into a free market paradise like they had turned Poland and the countries of Eastern Europe with shock therapy.
America is pursuing a forward strategy of freedom in the greater Middle East.
To diversify their economies, open their political systems.
We must stand with democratic leaders and moderate reformers across the broader Middle East.
The United Kingdom is ready to work with governments and civil society in the Middle East in support of greater economic development and more open political systems.
From Damascus to Tehran, that freedom can be the future of every nation.
Dass kein Eindruck entstehen darf, dass diese freiheitliche
You must not get the impression that what happens in the streets of Cairo at the moment is initiated by the Western world or other foreign states.
Washington, D.C.
The Iranian government produced this propaganda video. The video is apparently unmasking a U.S. conspiracy group. Part of this secret gathering is Gene Sharp, author of the guidebook From Dictatorship to Democracy. The video shows Iran is acutely aware of just how much of a threat Gene Sharp and his strategies are to their rule. Venezuela's President Hugo Chavez also voices his concerns. Mr. Cameraman, come close. Hear the symbol from Serbia and hear the same in Venezuela in 2007. This is called a gentle coup. Cairo after the revolution. The city seems quiet, apart from some religious upheaval. Remarkably, few police or military forces are present. But everyday life is hard for the Egyptians. The constant fear of a counter-revolution is always at the forefront of their minds. Anyone and everyone is a suspect, a potential counter-revolutionary. who wants to bring back the old regime. The old city is as vibrant as ever, only the tourists are missing. The people's thoughts revolve around their immediate future, the upcoming elections. What will democracy bring for them? The established political parties, the military, or the Islamic Brotherhood? And then what will be left of the spirit of the revolution, the hopes and dreams of the people of Egypt? The people that suggest that there was a big master plan behind this revolution, they don't know what was going on in the streets of Egypt. We have witnessed what our country had become. We wanted the changes, and we wanted them to come from our midst. We wanted to be the creators of our own destinies, to fight for our rights. I cannot believe that the Americans can influence millions of people. The people of Tunisia still enjoy the freedom. For the first time, they are able to discuss publicly what has troubled them for decades. Their former leaders' lies, the corruption, the unfair distribution of wealth. They are unsettled, however, by the recent arrests of civilians and the curfews. Also, the economy is a major concern for them. Tourism is slow, and foreign investors see Tunisia as a risky endeavor.
We have to differentiate between the revolution that brought us freedom, which is a very big and major and important step. It took place in a month or two in Tunisia, but then we are going through an entire process of democracy transition. And when we talk about democracy transition, we are not talking about weeks nor months, but we are talking about years. We should not be impatient about democracy. We have achieved freedom through this revolution. It's a big capital, it's a big thing to keep on, but we have to move on to democracy building.
We are scared. Look at Romania. There was a revolt against their regime, but then the old potentates came back into power. We fear that that could happen here. There have been talks about a counter-revolution. So we request that everybody from the old regime who was involved in criminal activities be brought to justice. The revolutionary road to democracy is one filled with many obstacles. Once the overthrowing of a government is accomplished, the hard work starts for these revolution activists. Civil liberties must be established and defended. For the revolution consultants, this has become a very lucrative business.